Hi everyone, Mrs. Bonner here with another edition of ELA Podcast Talk. I wanted to kind of break down a little bit about how assessment is going in class. Right now we've been doing a lot with understanding our learning standards that we're going to be working with this year, making sure kids feel comfortable with these learning standards, and also how these learning standards are going to impact the work that we're going to be constructing in this class throughout the year. One of the things that I wanted to do now is to kind of provide a little bit of a walkthrough or tutorial of some student resources that are currently in your hands and that may not be accessible via Skyward, since that really only deals with letter grades and points. One of the things that I want to start off by encouraging you to take a look at, whether that be through your student's computer or with your access that you should have at home through our Google Drive system, is that your student should have shared with you a folder that is named their first name, last name. This folder will house documents that both you and I and your child will have access to. I created a sample folder here on the screen. Typically, instead of saying sample student folder, it would say your child's name. And currently, right now, there should be 3 documents that are existing in that space. So if you're kind of wondering on progress, or if you're wanting to know my voice, this is an area where I'd like to try and develop an online portfolio so that you can start seeing some progress that your child is making in language arts. I want to walk you through these 3 documents separately, but just to kind of as a introduction, these 2 documents right here deal with our first unit, which was basically getting to know routines and establishing some norms that were happening in class. We had our epic selfie challenge. This document right here in particular is a self-assessment that kids are required to fill out. Kids will be asked to reflect on their learning after every unit in terms of the 3 P's that we have going on in class. That's participation, progress, and performance. Next you'll see over here is the Unit 1 assessment, and I'll get into that a little bit more, which I think I've touched on a little bit, but just to kind of show you how this folder is structured and built upon. Unit 1 will showcase all the assignments, plus it will have links to student work, so you'll be able to have an hands-on approach to seeing students' work, and then also you'll be able to see a lot of my feedback. Unit 2 is something that we've added on as of just today, and we are also incorporating our standards now that we are feeling more comfortable with it. So Unit 2 actually gives a little bit more of a snapshot into what kids are actually going to be doing for this assessment feedback in class. So let me go ahead and show you these documents as I've described them. I'm going to click on that self-assessment. If you take a look, you'll see that every student has a set of questions. For example, participation says, describe your class participation throughout this quarter. And then students chose a color to kind of color code their answers so that they're distinguished between the question and the answer. This is just a basic 1-page snapshot so students can constantly be in reflection with their learning process. And hopefully this idea of reflection builds throughout the year as they start making connections and threads to the things that they're learning about. The second document that I talked about was the Unit 1 assignments. So just to kind of basically read your child's work is that if you were to log into the Unit 1 assessment feedback, you'll not only see the assignment, more than likely you'll see a link which will take you to the blog or the assignment that has been linked there so that you have a hands-on look at what that assignment actually is. And then you'll see my feedback as well. If I were to continue scrolling down, you'll see the remainder of the assignments as well as my feedback too for each assignment. This comment right here where it says your response doesn't necessarily mean you, but it does mean your student. So if your child is interested in talking more about this or has any questions and may not find time in class, this is also an outlet your student can reach out to me and that we can have dialogue about their learning. So just to kind of show you how this works and what you can be looking for. Last, I want to take a look at that second one that was just created as of today. So this is Unit 2. Unit 2, we're really talking about standards. We're talking about literacy, and we're also talking about literacy in the real world. As you and I both know from previous discussions, quality matters versus quantity. So in this unit, this very short unit, we have 3 assignments. We have a collaborative product that the kids were constructing, and that involves the understanding of learning standards and 21st century skills. They had to present that product today to class. They had to basically give a small pitch presentation. And then we're also going to be constructing a blog next week. So these are the 3 things that really gain my attention in terms of my time as assessing. There are a lot of checkpoints that I do in class in terms of making progress in work, looking at feedback, conferencing with students. But unfortunately, I don't have enough space to put all of that on here. So these are the big things that I would say that are assessment worthy, so to speak. If you take a look up here for the Unit 2 assignments, we had some before we start tasks, so it's a series of surveys that I wanted students to complete. So if they completed those, they would mark yes. Also the product of their standards and their skills that they were able to manipulate throughout the week. Most students have a link here that takes them to their actual product, so that will give you an opportunity to see what your student has been working on with a collaborative group. We did a presentation on that project today, and then next week we'll be moving into looking at literacy in the 21st century, or out into beyond our 4 walls. And lastly, the self-assessment is the self-assessment that I did show you previously with the color coding that students will be asked to complete at the end of this unit. Most times you'll see, as you saw in the previous Unit 1 assessment, you'll see me typing here on assignments, or you might see a link. So if you were to click on these links, these are direct feedbacks from me to some sort of criteria along those lines. If you were to scroll over to the right here, you'll also see not only my feedback, you'll see where your student can chime in and talk to me, but I also have notes that could possibly relate to behavior. So not necessarily poor behavior by any means, but this could be behavior such as, I noticed that you turned in these assignments late, or I noticed that you didn't get feedback on time because your timeliness was off. I never want to muddy the waters of behavior and academics. I'm here to assess academics and the ability to learn. I'm not here to punish or use grades as punishment for maybe something that's been turned in late, or something that needs to be revised. So this area might be where I get to celebrate a lot of really good things, which most of the time it is, and then otherwise I might give acknowledgement to some patterns I might see behaviorally in class. As a parent, I would want to definitely pay attention to this if anything's there, as well as the feedback academically that's happening with student work. The last thing I want to go over is, if you'll notice down over here on this far left-hand side, you'll see the learning standards that we've been working with. Students are asked to take a look at their assignments, and they are asked to assess themselves based on the standards that I have indicated. So the X's here represent the standards that this assignment touches on, and then the M stands for meets, NTY stands for not there yet. Students will be self-evaluating. So you'll see just in the sample that a couple of standards have been filled out, but there's still a lot of other samples that need to go back in and fill this out as well. You may be wondering, well, how do I know what a meets is or what a not there yet is? Students were given a resource today that is also located on the class webpage. That is entitled the Assessment Guidelines. If I were to go to the class webpage and click on the Assessment Guidelines, this takes me to a rubric that shows what the standard is, what it means to meet that standard, and what it means to not there yet with that standard. So for me, this starts a really good dialogue as kids self-assess, and I can go back and double check things to make sure that I agree with them, and that we can start our conference with maybe some of the things that we may or may not agree with. So it kind of starts a dialogue between me and your child to really dig deep and build those skills that may not be present right now. But at this point, I'm really teaching students how to talk about their learning, how to articulate their learning, how to articulate what kind of support that they need. And we do that with the help of the learning standards. So as a parent, I just really wanted to walk you through this sample folder and to show that you can access this every day, because there's potentially times where this could be touched every day or a couple times a week, or I would at least check in once a week so that you can see student work. Like as if you were to access a medical folder for your child to see documentation of the times that doctors have been to help facilitate your child's health. This kind of works the same way. These are my notes and our snapshots of learning, as well as actual hard evidence of student work. So I hope this helps, and I hope that you check it out. Thank you.